Happy New Year and all that.
Very good, very good. Yeah, Happy New Year. I don't know when you stopped saying Happy New Year.
I remember in university once, and me and an Irish friend, we kept going, "How was your Christmas?" until about April. Really?
My favourite's the best of the year. So it's best cup of tea I've had all year. First
Nice.
week of January. Keep that going for as long as possible. Never disappoints.
Cool. And how has the year been so far?
Yeah, very good. We've it's been a bit of a crazy one, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, we've had lots going on. We've had one of our biggest projects to date and our biggest client to date kind of running at the same time, which has been really interesting. One of our clients has just been bought by a big American firm, which has just chucked a rocket at them. And the reason they've invested in them is purely for R&D, or not purely, but a big part of it is for R&D. So it's been one project with them turned into, I think we've got about 8 running at the moment of a list of about 23.
Cool.
Which is really good fun. Which is lots going on.
Yeah,
But
nice.
so far, so good.
Yeah, and for the people that didn't, obviously this is your second appearance on the pod, Tom. You're coming a bit of a veteran. So for those that didn't listen to the first one, who are you? What do you do, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, cool. I'm Tom Parsons. I started Aetha about 5 years ago. Before that, I was at Bournemouth University back in the day, 2005, I think I started. I started designing camera systems for super yachts for a while. And then I went to Dyson, did my stint at Dyson for about 4 years before starting Aetha. But the thought of starting Aetha was before I went to Dyson. It was very much go to somewhere that was the complete opposite of where I currently was. I was working on singles, one-offs for super yachts, so very bespoke, CNC manufacture, that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to go to the exact opposite of that. I wanted to design things for 10 million offs instead of 10 offs.
I came down to see, was it last summer, maybe? Probably the summer
Yeah, or was
before,
that 2 years
maybe?
ago, I think? Yeah.
Probably the summer before. Yeah, so I don't know if you've been able to walk the streets of Poole since your first podcast appearance. So that's a very difficult one. We had one, didn't we? We went for a drink and it was really bizarre. I was just like, I'll meet Win for a drink after work. And I was just standing outside Pancras Station and got spotted. That was a very strange
No way.
experience. And we ended up taking this fella for a drink, didn't we? He was like, oh, you can come with us if you
He
Yeah.
wasn't
want.
even a designer.
It's this very strange experience. But
It's funny doing local talks and things. I had one a couple of years ago. Yeah, I did this talk on 3D printing, I think it was, in Bournemouth. The next morning, bumped into this guy in the coffee queue. I was like, oh, you're Tim, aren't you? You did that talk last night. I was like, 50% right.
And it's all going well with you as well when you got a new job. And I appreciate you got your
Settling in.
design truth. You got your design truth out on today, but how's the new job going? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, loving it at PDD. It's really good. It's really good. It's it's a different experience from my design reality days, but I'm really enjoying being back in consultancy land. It's fun.
And have you been pleased
Nice.
with how busy things have been? I mean, imagine, I don't listen to the news anymore, so I don't know what's going on in the world. But every time I talk to someone, they always go, "Oh, it's turbulent times." But have you been pleased generally about workload and projects? And same for you, Tom. Things positive rather than things a little bit indifferent.
Main concern at the moment is actually getting more people in. Trying to hire at the moment. Still have been for quite some time. But yeah, no, generally feeling very positive.
Good.
Yeah.
Same for you.
I mean, for us, we've got a lot of kind of international clients. So I think depending on which maybe hemisphere and what mood people are in, I think that could be a big kind of I think people's kind of perceptions of the news, and I think just generally Christmas and winter just kind of plays havoc with a lot of people. And a lot of people just kind of shut up shop, don't they? And go, nah, it's 2 weeks before Christmas. Then we won't be back now until a fortnight after Christmas, and before you know it, like a month has gone. So it's But no, so I think having benefits of international business is massive.
Plenty of things to be positive about. Now, lots of the chatter maybe this was some of your Christmas chatter, I don't know, with family and friends, or whether it was Richard Madley on G&B this morning. It's all about this thing called AI. Now, is this something that's been studio chat for the last couple of weeks or so, I guess, or
Yeah,
not?
definitely.
Hmm.
It's come out of, well, almost out of nowhere. I think what is so fascinating about it is how young it is
Hmm.
and how far it's progressed in such a short time. And just kind of build up to this. I've been watching podcasts and reading bits, trying to get into the kind of understanding of where it's come from and how young it is. And it's 2015 they started working on it. In the grand scheme of technology, it's an absolute baby, but how it's progressed in such a short time,
Yeah.
and how quickly we're able to get something usable from it, I think is really interesting. Like that first, I mean, always I always try and be an early adopter, which I wasn't before. I was super cynical. I think like early career stuff. I was always a little bit cynical about new technology and things like that. And I didn't really realize, so someone called me out on it. I think, oh no, actually, yeah, you're right. And I wish I hadn't back in Bitcoin days, telling telling people in 2014 that it's going nowhere. Could be a very different scenario. But yeah, so something like this, I was really interested in getting on top of pretty early.
There's something
And
you are using in terms of, and maybe even for yourself, whether it's just on your day to day or just at certain points in the week. Is it something that actually you've now fully incorporated into your work process, I guess, or not?
I don't think. Well, we haven't. I don't. Not. I mean, I've got some ideas about how you could use it. But yeah, no, we haven't within the design team or wider in the community thought about it really in terms of using it. I mean, I think we've all been playing with it and been massively curious about it. I mean, I think I've just been interested in it more just socially. I think realistically, talking with family and friends, reassuring them. I think that's generally been kind of my interest with it. We've all try to understand if we can tell you some jokes or write some songs, or how good is it translating things into North Wales kind of dialect of Welsh, and it's those things that I find interesting from the Chat GPT perspective, and then obviously had a play with Midjourney and DALL-E and a bit with Stable Diffusion as well, but yeah, I think I totally agree with Tom. It's definitely here to stay. It's definitely growing. I think we're definitely at the kind of Windows 3.1, and I think everyone's going to be excited about the Windows 95, which which will be coming up soon. So I think it was almost inevitable, realistically. I think you can't have this huge vast amount of data on the internet and that no one has thought about pulling it all together. And I think what's convinced everybody in terms of that early adoption is the fact that it's felt almost human. So I think that's the bit where you Google something, you get a list of items. Great. This is doing the same thing, but the fact that it's written it out using language.
You can actually have a conversation with it.
Exactly, and the fact that it's remembered your previous question and has learned from that. I think that's the thing that I think has shocked people, is that it doesn't come across like one of these pop-up chat bots you get on a website that wants to help you or something. It's got a little, it's feeling like it's human to a lot of people. But then I think once you've actually scratched the surface, I think it's obviously got a lot to go before. I still think it's very distinguishable.
It's that creative side though in the writing that is kind of fascinated me originally. It's the tell me a joke or write me a song, or I got to write as a haiku for the pod. Just like those kind of things. But also I guess where Google supposedly has gone into code red, and I don't know if I completely believe that, because I'm sure they've they're working on something very similar. But
Of course they have, yeah.
in terms of asking it a question, I had one. So I've got another business, which is the sunglasses Kickstarter that we're just going through manufacture fulfillment. And I spent a couple of hours on the internet trying to teach stuff about import duty and VAT and from different countries. And yeah, deciphering Google, that kind of technical information is an absolute nightmare. Chucked into chat GPT, they need a new name. Definitely needs a new name. They're the only one that can say chat GPT really fast. And straight away, what is import tax from Italy to the UK? And it was a succinct paragraph, and straight away was much better information than my 2 hours of roaming around Google. But again, you can almost trust it as well, because it's like, it's not giving you a definitive answer.
It feels quite trustworthy, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's saying, I think it's this, these are the rules that I can find. For a definitive answer, contact this department.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's amazing. How long do I need to go through the internet to find the exact kind of department of the UK government to get to an answer? So that side of it, and again, just testing it with things like marketing plan. Again, for the Sunnies, it's just I'm not marketing, I'm not sales. Like, that kind of side of it is completely alien to me. And influencer marketing. So it's just just chucking some things at it, like, how do we use influencer marketing for a campaign? What do we need to give people? What should our budgets be? And it's quite insightful. It's really interesting. But it is only as good as what you put in.
Yeah. We'll probably come on to that, won't we, in terms of that human impact that has. I mean, you should see me using some of the visual stuff. It's quite funny. You must think it's some of the prompts are a little bit rogue and they don't really go anywhere. But
if you look at those as well, those adoption rates, I think the fact that is interesting from the fact that it is easy to use if you can, if it allow you in, because
if you can get in.
Is, I think what to find out before, that was the fact they had, in comparison to some of the other kind of technologies that have come over recent years, 1 million users in 5 days.
Yeah.
It took Facebook 10 months. It took Netflix 3.5 years. So
the valuation's just gone through the roof, hasn't it? It's just, as a business, it's just completely bonkers. It's absolutely crazy.
But I think it's the fact that people can access it, find it easy. There's a really nice interaction there. Whereas I think Netflix, obviously, broadband speed, things like that, it almost been a barrier to people accessing those things, and people really understanding what Facebook was, because I think MySpace was battling for it at the time. But I think this is very clear. It's very, very niche, and nothing else is doing what ChatGPT does. So it's quite interesting in terms of how quickly non-technical people are playing with it, which I think is quite interesting as well.
I've just seen, actually, for the first time, it being used, DALL-E, on LinkedIn. I think it's a marketing company. The guys runs a marketing company, and didn't credit that it was DALL-E. So it was a post using images from DALL-E, saying, I can't remember what it is now, about the new Tiffany Nike collab, saying, why aren't other companies doing it? And obviously put in the Tiffany blue green into DALL-E with Crocs and all these other things. And he's got a range of products. He's got a Tiffany range of different shoes. But I think what was interesting was that it was the first post that I've seen that wasn't referencing AI or about AI, showing AI. It was about something.
Is that the human ego getting in the way? Is it?
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's where the issue comes. Later on, that's where the kind of the artist side are concerned, or where it's like actually not crediting the artist or who is the artist and where that line sits. But yeah, I don't think we've quite got there. But in terms of, back to your question about using it in the studio, we have been using it, but I would say at the same level of scrolling through Pinterest.
Okay.
For me, at the moment, it's like creating your own Pinterest board is probably the best way that I can describe it. It's chucking in some prompts and it's finding those little bursts of inspiration. It's definitely not the whole image, but we were looking at it's a fitness product, and it's quite a particular fitness product, and then some of the things that are coming out, it's like, oh, that's surface finish, that's really interesting, you know, just like a little surface profile that's just the shape and how a chamfer interacted with a fillet, you know. It's those little nuances that you kind of start to see that you might not have seen through a Pinterest scroll.
Okay.
But then also with clients, we've been doing kind of little workshops, you know, just kind of been going for a review. We sit down with the client, and the 10 minutes where you would be chatting about your weekend, it's kind of, come on then, what do you want to chuck into Mid-Journey?
Yeah.
and
are your clients chatting about it as well? I mean, are they asking you about your opinion on it, or are they using it?
No, not that I know of. No, it's pretty much been us kind of driving it, kind of look at this new toy, you know, and rather than the other way. No one is really asking for it, or yeah, particularly ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's more kind of, yeah, what crazy ideas can we spit out of it?
Yeah. But do you see that dynamic changing at all?
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I think because it is so accessible, anyone could put something out as a starter of a project, maybe. I think that maybe that kind of brief creation tool, potentially. I mean, it's the biggest point, I guess, at the moment is that there is no development, you know, in the kind of design process. It stops abruptly at concepts, and not even full concepts at the moment. I'd say you're hard pushed to get a kind of full product concept, unless I've seen some fairly good cars and things like that. It's kind of the shapes that you just obviously commonly see, and it's interesting from brand perspective. It seems to have latched onto Nike. It seems to handle really, and there must be so many Nike logos out there. You try and most of the examples out there have been Nike. You try and give it a kind of a slightly niche brand, and it stumbles.
Yeah, because I think because it's essentially that, because it's built on that statistical mathematical model, is that it's the more time people are, I don't know, putting images into it or asking the same things, is you're going to get that very focused thing where, again, it understands that Nike. I think when you start talking to people about how do you understand, do you know where this information or data is coming from to be able to create this? And I think that's the important thing. I think people need to not just use it, but they need to dig deeper and go, do you understand how this works and why it's working? Because there was an interesting thing I saw on Pinterest where industrial designers, because of the algorithm built within Pinterest, is people were creating very, I don't know, minimal forms, and the details of them were very, 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 I can see, muted because of what Pinterest was showing you.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, where people sometimes don't think about what they're being provided and how they're using that as inspiration. And it's kind of going, well, if every industrial designer is using Pinterest boards and using, I don't know, Le Manouche or something like that, right? That's why everything starts to look the same.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going, I want simple, minimal forms, and it's like, right, and it kind of evolves like that. Whereas I think it's quite interesting to use it as your own Pinterest board. It's a nice take on it.
Yeah, I like the line from Ian Campbell Cole when he said it's a HD extension into my imagination. I think that was a nice kind of line of
I mean,
what it is.
I mean, it's a nice point of view where, you know, we're lucky designers. You think visually, you can think in 3 dimensions, and I think a lot of people have lost that. I mean, we've all had it as kids, right? But people have lost it, and in particular, if you've got clients and they've come from a certain background, and they've got maybe this idea, or they're trying to communicate something, and even if they can get to I don't know, a post-it note sketch or something, but if they can kind of go, they can add more realism to that, it kind of helps with that conversation, right? In terms of, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking, or well, actually, we've done this drawing. Is this what you were thinking? You can have those conversations become a lot easier because of being able to communicate essentially in the same language, which is the visual language, right?
Yeah, completely. That's what we were discussing today, actually, is that the kind of 2 main areas that I can see it is, one is that Pinterest board. The other side of it is just rendering, just visualizing concepts that you've sketched. And I'm seeing more and more people using it, putting in their sketches. And as a 3D rendering tool, it's insane. How it lays shadows and depth of field and colors, and it's, from that side of it, it's pretty incredible. What would take hours of training a Keyshot, and that's the side of it where it's potentially less creative, in the sense that it's not coming up with new imagery or concepts. You're using it as a tool, and you are still the creative driver. That's where maybe the clients could come in as well, because we get a lot of fag packet sketches, and it would be way better if we did get straight away a 3D 3D well rendered piece to get your head around things.
But I wonder, if you get that situation, could you have if it's a client, I don't know, they're using their own money, they've invented something in their shed, and they've come out and they've gone, I want this, and they've got some wonderful rendering, and then you've then got maybe that situation of kind of going, oh, you've got to question these things, right? As a consultant, you've got to question things and advise them, and is this the right strategy? Is it solving the right problem? All those things you would typically do at the front end, is that someone could be kind of going, I want this, and then it's like, well, but we offer all these other services. You just want this to be made, and it's and it's almost empowering those clients and the general public to feel like they're designers, but they're also skipping quite a few steps. Right?
It's like Canva for product design.
Does it lower the outside value of design? Does it cheapen it?
That's a really good question. I say no, because I think that the value is in that creative input, and then the added value, or what it cannot do at all at the moment, is development. I think coming up with a concept is one thing, but being able to develop it into a manufacturable product within a budget, within a serious set of specifications, I think we're quite a way off that. And I can't see how that would work at the moment, but if you those words in a couple of years time.
if you was a design student, so let's say you was a 2nd year student or a 3rd year student, you're seeing all this stuff pop up, a lot of noise about it. Do you think that's something that you should spend much time focusing your attention on, or not? would you be going, this is the skill set I can effectively bring into a design studio once graduating, because I've got the time to really nail down this bit of software, or would you just ignore it and just crack on with the current fundamentals?
I'd compare it to my era as digital sketching.
Okay.
I kind of left uni at the time where it was very much hand rendering, marker pen renders, and I definitely didn't pick that up sooner.
Okay.
And that's where the grads now, unbelievable. It's so good. Everyone is just free flow sketching on an iPad, and because I didn't jump on that straight away, I kind of missed out on that. I'd see this as that next evolution of it's a skill set, and I see it as empowering for grads. I wouldn't be concerned as a grad, absolutely not. It's another skill, and it's another, I think, yeah, someone wrote today, it's another tool for the tool bag. It's something that to use, and being able to jump on it early and understanding it, you'll only be empowering. And yeah, I think it's crazy. I've seen people say that, oh, there won't be a need for grads anymore. Like, what are you on about? We don't have grads, we don't have seniors.
Yeah.
You can't just chop off the
Yeah,
start of
and
a
particularly
career.
these are people who are going to know a lot about the kind of what the right prompts to use are.
Yeah, exactly.
Working with your peers at that level is going to be so much experimentation. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's. Go on.
Do you see a future job title of prompt engineer?
There's definitely new job titles that we don't know yet. I definitely believe that. I think there's, a product designer graduating around, millennium. Shows how old I am. But the was a product designer in that definition was someone who could do research. You could do the concepting. You'd be doing some design engineering, and then as you come through it, I've the UX and the UI elements. These things you kind of picked up, and you've always kind of on product designer. To me, it's the same experiential thing. And obviously, we've got these roles now, and you're kind of going, right, this person just in UI, and that's all they do, or they do user research, and that's all they do. And it's like, wow. And obviously these people are fantastic, and they become so specialized. The quality, the output is fantastic. But I think for the people who are probably older and they've been a bit broader, it's still kind of hard to kind of understand that division of labor a little bit. But and in particular for a small consultancy, you can't have just a user researcher or
doesn't quite work like that.
You need that breadth, right? So I think it's but yeah, I definitely think there's new terms. Maybe prompt engineer is a weird title, but there's definitely things going forward that we don't know yet.
Okay, cool. One of the things I should probably say is we're doing our salary survey at the minute, our salary guide, and lots of people have filled out our form. And it was funny because I was just reading through kind of what I would say the range of emotions that people have around AI. Being like, so the question was, what are your thoughts on AI / chat GPT, and what impact does this potentially have on your day job? So, and it's funny because the first one is not bothered, and then the one underneath it goes industry redefining. So it's like this real kind of breadth of like, some people think their jobs are going, other people don't really care. So I presume that most people probably fall in between those two things. But yeah, it's been quite interesting just to see, I suppose, the range of emotion that people feel. People rightly talking about the kind of the natural biases that it has when you do your kind of prompts and things. So it's quite limited in that respect. And then you had some comments as well, didn't you, Tom, from earlier of kind of a range of different comments that people.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of responses. I did a quick Instagram poll. A lot. I'd say overwhelming kind of excitement. I would say it was the word that was coming up.
Intrigue.
Excitement, intrigue. So for research productivity, yes. Design solution generator, absolutely not. We've got one person here that said, more worried the client will see it as another reason to pay us less. And I'd say excitement came up in a third of the responses we had. So I'd say that's the overalling emotion, I think, that I've seen.
Cool. Yeah, do you know what it generally feels like to me? I do actually remember the first time I ever used the internet. The first week of August 1995.
Life defining.
Genuinely, it was in a Welsh cultural festival called Eisteddfod, which is a culture, but they have a technology tent, which is where nerds like me used to go and look. But they had the internet, and they had a couple of computers, and that moment of kind of, I think it was a Yahoo chat room, God knows who I was speaking to. You know, I'd gone to like a football page or something. You know, I was 14 at the time, and you know, from that moment, you kind of go, this is different. This is this is, you know, I hate the word game changer, but it feels like that, and you kind of go, you know, everyone's saying, God, this is going to be, you know, a lot of people dismissing it. You know, there's a really famous video clip of David Bowie saying, you know, like, this is genuinely going to change everything. And I think this is something to consider as well. I think it's, you know, it's going to be more subtle in the background. I don't think it's going to be as in your face as what you think. There's definitely going to be a supportive technology that's in there already. You like, you know, I think the word AI does scare a lot of people, but you know, think about every time you get a Netflix recommendation or Spotify suggests some songs that you like it's doing the same thing, right? It's doing exactly the same thing. It's picking up on patterns in data and providing you to them, because you're actually quite like a lot of other people.
And just quickly before we kind of move on to something else, but in terms of, you know, within the kind of the range of the comments, there is that natural cynicism, a bit of fear. You know, is my job going? Do I need to retrain? You know, anxiety. Just quickly on that. On the other side, it could be blind optimism, that it's, you know, playing devil's advocate, that you know. So where does that come from in terms of that fear and anxiety? And is it something that we need to kind of tackle head on and say, look, guys, your job's not going? Or you know, is it something that as an attitude is probably not a healthy kind of place
I'd
to
say
be at, really?
What I've kind of learned over the years with anything that's coming out that's new is to not fight it. You can't stop it. It's you know, particularly these kind of things, it's coming whether we like it or not. You either embrace it and you jump on, or you don't and you kind of mess the bandwagon. It's like the same. I remember growing up, parents, friends, graphic designer, and he was airbrush, and you know, he worked on some epic stuff, you know, like cereal packets for like Wheatos, so completely hand airbrush, like this kind of like amazing stuff. But he, you know, he was an artist, and then the advent of Photoshop and all these things, and he resisted it 100%. And you know, I think he missed out on that. And I don't know where he went, but that was my first kind of seeing of something that's like, okay, it's new technology. Everyone's scared of it at the start and probably cynical, you know. But if you don't embrace it in some way or learn how to use it, I think that's the point, is don't think of it as something that's going to take over all of our jobs, and you know, we're all just going to be sat here typing in prompts and spitting out products. So it's not going to be that. But if you can find a way to embrace it somehow, because it's going to be growing, and the rate that it's grown just in months, you know, you read, I watched some YouTubes today 4 months ago of them running DALIs from DALI 1, which is what, a couple of years, and then a few months ago that DALI 2 wasn't released, and they're still showing these DALI 1s. They're like, what's this going to be doing in a few months? Like, you know, people at home are going to be doing it. It's like, that's today. So what, you know, this thing's going to be moving at such a rate. I'd say don't fight it.
I think the other thing that I discovered today, which was quite nice, and it was kind of, what would be the word? It was very, very satisfying. That I asked ChatGPT, what can't you do that a human can?
You
know, I think everyone's probably asked that question in some kind of shape or form, right? And you do look at those responses, and it's kind of ultimately it's asking, what is it to be human, all right? And I think when you look at those things, which kind of lists them, and you know, empathy, emotional understanding, creativity, spontaneity, ethical decision making, and common sense reasoning was another one it told me. We all know these, right? But it's obviously quite nice for just to list you them in 2 seconds flat, right? But my point being there is that when you then cross-reference them with design thinking skills, right, they're essentially the same. And that was like that something really sparked there, because I've had a beam up on it about design education for a while and not being core, and it should be taught until it's 18 and beyond. But those skills now that essentially are design thinking, and they are those human skills, they're going to be so important in the future, because AI and machines and robots will be able to do those other things.
Yeah.
So I think it's understanding from a point of view of the design process, and giving I guess young listeners and watchers understanding where how should they build their careers. I think it's realizing that being empathic with the user, being creative, being spontaneous, thinking of crazy ideas, making decisions again on multiple things that whether it's cost and budget and aesthetics and manufacturing and all the various factors we have to juggle. Those are all things that are design thinking, but they're also the things that the AI can't do. So I would say that let the AI support you, but really focus on those human skills, because those are the things that are going to set you apart.
Nice, nailed it.
It just dawned on me. I was kind of going, wow. And then it does beg the question of kind of when you think about schools going forward and they're teaching STEM, and I'm going, no, they should be teaching design, and those kind of.
Could you see? Obviously, we can't speak for lecturers, but could you see a lecturer during this process being a little bit afraid and a little bit cynical of it? But actually, they should be the ones that should be encouraging the.
I spoke to one before the recording, actually. Just because I knew this question
curious,
was coming up. Yeah, curious, but it's kind of going. And he says universities and schools are freaking out a little bit, in particular in non-design
I was going to say
subjects. They're the ones where if you're teaching 300 students maths, then there's an issue there. But the interesting thing that this person was telling me was that the fact that art and architecture, for example, or industrial design are kind of set up with a process where you're getting that feedback from your lecturers, and you're going through a rigorous process. That's where you can't cheat. You can't put something in and it comes back, because you need to talk about it. You need to have that critique. You need to understand the problem. Is it a worthwhile problem to talk about? What's your ideas, the concept? We all know those steps. So I think that's the really interesting thing, is you can't get away with it a little bit, right? And yes, it's good. Yeah, create some wonderful images in DALL-E, Midjourney, or whatever. Now talk about them. And let's have a conversation. Let's dig deep. So, but I was I watched a podcast the other day, and this guy nailed it. Is that if we value grades more than we do learning, then that's the problem, right? So I think if we're all talking about what grade you're getting, you can cheat it. You can cheat your way to an A now, no problem, if you wanted to, right? But what's the point, and what's the ending, and what's the learning? So I think the question is, how do people assess the learning? And I was lecturer for some time, and it's a tricky thing sometimes when you've got arguably 10 minutes to mark potentially a bit of work that someone spent weeks on, because the time and various kind of limitations. So that whole investment now from universities in individual feedback that is meaningful is going to be massively important, because you can't really have, I don't think, anymore of these mass teaching courses, because they're also massively assessed, right? Which means there's no real quality in the kind of feedback that you're getting. So it's but I can imagine it is an interesting time to be an educator.
I wonder how long till these tools will be taught, like we did SolidWorks, Keyshot, Midjourney.
I imagine some progressive people are doing it right now. Like it's like, if you think about it from a design perspective, the more iterations you can get, the better the outcome. Right? So it's, if anything helps that and speeds it up, then you can do more projects, or like there's, I think, I can imagine there's some people out there who are right on it. And like you said before, if you're not on it, you're going to be left behind.
We've got our first Keyshot session next week, which is sold out. So maybe in in the future at some point we should do some kind of
Yeah.
AI based training.
Don't need Keyshot anymore. I've got a mid journey.
don't tell that
Cancel the
to
course.
don't tell that to people that paid money to come to the course. I'll be sweating over these 30 days. I'll be sweating over these 30-day payment now. But I thought what would be quite useful. Obviously, some people listen to this podcast, some people watch it. So maybe if you're listening, we're going to see how the next bit goes. It might be one of those where you now pause and you go onto YouTube.
You just pick up the guitar.
Yeah. But we thought, why don't we just kind of load up DALL-E now and just kind of play around with it a little bit and just see how Tom and Win, I'll probably shut up, to see how they kind of use it. And then, because I think one of the bits of, I suppose, content, the bits of learning that isn't really out there at the minute is that kind of, how is someone else using it? It's almost a bit like you know, here's this thing that you can, here's this new toy, but what am I doing with it?
I think that's why I was really interested. I had, so when I first did it, my girlfriend was up super early. She had to get a plane at like 6 in the morning or something. So I was up. It's like 6:30 in the morning. I've got a couple of hours. Grab a laptop and had seen it pop up on LinkedIn. So I just thought, how do I do it? So YouTube, how do you sign up to Midjourney? And bought some credits and went on there. And we were working on, still are working on a hydration pack at the moment. So chucked in hydration pack for climbing. And it was like, what? This is like 7 a.m. now. Like, how have I
You
got
woke up then, didn't you?
Yeah, it's like, how have I got 4 contacts for a hydration pack with quite interesting parts of it? Is the first one. I was like, so I typed in hydration pack for climbing, and one of them was rigid external hydration. So when you're going through that original concept stage, I bet the first 4 packs you draw are going to have a soft reservoir inside a rucksack. You know, that's what we were working on. That's the brief. And it's just like that one little spark was like, oh, hey, that's quite interesting. Why would you think that would be better for climbing? Is it a strength, or is it a temperature? Is it better to insulate it if it is rigid? If it's outside, you've got more space inside the pack, and all those kind of things. What's your Win? You've been using both. What is your assessment between the two, kind of DALL-E and Midjourney?
I found, give me sure I get mixed up. One was better at, I would say, the concept. The other one was better at the detail. I think it was DALL-E.
Right.
DALL-E was better at, no, Midjourney was better at a concept, and DALL-E was a better visualizer, or essentially a renderer.
Really?
I think it was that way around, but
I've definitely found the opposite.
Was it the other way around, Win?
But that's what I found, is that, you know, you was getting a lot more detail in there. It was something that, again, was maybe more expected.
Okay.
Around it was.
Yeah, I've definitely found the opposite. Yeah. I found Midjourney way more photorealistic renders. And DALL-E I found much more sketch level. I put a comparison on LinkedIn of a wetsuit, and the Midjourney is like 3D, like epic 3D render, and the guy's got like 6-pack, and it's just like, looks like you would see it in a triathlon showroom. You know, it looks epic. Yeah. The DALL-E one was a sketched dad bod. It looked like the Jamaican bobsled team, kind of like a green stripe across the front, and this kind of square-looking guy.
Is that down to the 2 bits of software, or is that down to you with the prompts that you put
That's same prompts. So I've been trying to do exactly the same prompts, just to do a pure comparison. And you're probably right. Maybe you could get to the same answer.
You need to put more detail on a certain one, and you can be a little bit more vague on
Maybe that's
the
it.
other one.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Do
Did you want to share your screen, or
you want me to do it?
yeah, I'll edit all this out. It will be one of those things, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Here's what I prepared earlier.
Yeah. So Midjourney you use on Discord, and because I've used
Yeah.
Dali, and that's where you buy the credits, and you get I think you get some free credits when you join, and you get some credits every month that kind of
Yeah, Dali,
it's
I've never had to pay anything really. It's just an email address and go. Same with Chat GPT.
good. Yeah.
I seem to be lucky getting on Chat GPT. I think a lot of people seem to be having trouble
Yeah.
actually getting time on it, but I found Safari better than Chrome.
Okay.
Don't know why. Seem to be able to get on there pretty quick. Discord, I signed up to the most basic one. I think it's like $10 a month or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's super simple. It works on Discord. It's and then you can go, if you go to Midjourney, you get a gallery of all your
Okay.
images as well, so you can kind of trawl back through your. It is really addictive. I don't know if you had it win as well. That kind of first couple of days, I found it really hard to drop. Found it really hard to put down. It's like one of those kind of toys. Like
How much
what
of
if we do that?
how much of a time vacuum can it actually be in terms of like
Massive,
yeah,
absolutely massive. If you can lose yourself on YouTube,
right,
or Instagram, I'd say it's similar level of
okay,
yeah, but it is one of those things where it's not mindless.
Mhm.
I'd say it is. You can take it as far as your own creativity. So
Mhm.
it's not something that you're going to like mindlessly scroll like you would Instagram or something like that. But I certainly lost a couple of hours, and it's one of those things where we start a new project, like just chuck it in Midjourney, just see what it has, see how it deals with it, and then you can start to read into the kind of next level of prompts. So if I just chuck in, so we've got Midjourney open now. Should we just put something in? So there's two main prompts that we use: imagine or blend.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have tried blend. It's kind of a image blending tool. What do you want?
So what's the difference to imagine and blend then? What's
So
the
imagine is giving prompts,
okay,
so text prompts or image prompts.
right?
And creates your 4 image set, and then
Okay.
from those you can upscale or create variations. Blend is when you literally just give it 2 images,
Okay.
and it blends those 2 images effectively. So if I go up a bit, I think you've got supposedly me in a snowboarding jacket.
Okay.
And that's my dog Phoebe on the moon.
You pulled the image into that.
Yeah, so that is 2 photos. So that's a photo of my dog on the beach, and a photo that I just got off the internet of the Milky Way. And it's rendered Phoebe in a few different positions with stars in the background. That I've found is pretty limiting, particularly with people's faces. It really struggles. But so yeah, earlier on, I think the blending of brands is quite interesting, and products, but also interior spaces. It seems to work really well, and things like POS, and I think that's a whole other side of it, is creating kind of POS ideas and concept stores and that kind of stuff. That's where it's really shown. I guess there's lots of pictures of buildings, and there's lots of types of architecture, so it's kind of what's already out there. So if you want what should we do? Nike concept store in a Japanese.
I feel like I've seen Tokyo in every single one
Yeah,
that's ever come
that's
out.
it. Japanese style. This is, I guess, the more people that do that, the more it's kind of that self-fulfilling thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So when you put your kind of first set of prompts in on any, whether it's Dali or Midjourney, Is it one of those things where you just gotta you can't kind of overthink it and you just gotta get it out there and see what it comes back? Or if you really got to spend time to think about how the wording that I'm putting off, you just gotta just get it out there and see what it kind of comes back
I normally
with.
start super simple.
Okay.
Start as broad as you can, and then from there you can start to, so you can see, it's quite cool. It clearly looks kind of Japanese, like a street store. But and then you can start, and you can do negative prompts as well. So you can say, don't show the color green, or don't show certain things. But yeah, what do you want? Give me a product.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of, like, in a typical trying to relate this to not live projects running, but just you run of the mill startup or inventor or someone that's come in off the street. What would be a realistic kind of like thing
the one thing for me,
you might work on? Or
backpacks are really hard to sketch.
Okay.
So that was part of the reason. So
a kid's backpack.
I've got. Well, yeah, maybe that's going to throw it off now, but you often get the kind of, I want it to look an Apple style, because people can't articulate what they mean, what they like about Apple, but it's like, I want it in that Apple style.
Okay, so I'm gonna say Apple branded backpack. Otherwise Apple style.
And you'd keep it as basic as that. You wouldn't get into the intricacies. Just simple, to the point.
Let's chuck that in, see what comes up. And then what you can do, so what I normally find is you kind of iterate on that. And then you can also, when you do an upscale, you get a single image, and then you can chuck that single image back in. What is interesting is that because there's a random element, every time you do it, it's completely different. It does. Here we go.
So for those
what it hasn't distinguished there is
the brand and not the fruit.
Yeah.
Well, exactly, right. Because
I think this one has started to. I'd say that's an Apple logo.
Yeah.
But what it hasn't done is the attributes of what makes something Apple, I think, and that's what I tried. So my first test was trail running shoes blend between Nike and Braun, because I was thinking trail running shoes generally garish, bright colors, over designed patterns, and it didn't get it. It completely disregarded Braun and gave me a outlandish trail shoe.
But also it wouldn't pick up those kind of classic principles, right? What it's probably going to do is going to grab, like, I don't know, like the classic record player or the calculator or the clock or something like that. And it's going to use the images of that rather than the fundamental core principles of Braun in that trail shoe.
And that's where the user comes into it again. So I did a Finisterre by Muji test. That was one thing. Okay, if Finisterre made furniture in the style of Muji, what would it look like? But to get to that, you can't put in Finisterre and Muji. It doesn't understand what those things are. So I was putting in pictures of jackets, so a Finisterre jacket, and it was picking things like the colors and the textures. And then for Muji, you're almost having to put in things that are kind of over stylized for it just to take those core principles. And then it's there's definitely a bit of iterative generating going on. That's not.
So you'd have to take, for this backpack here, the one on the bottom right where it isn't a fruit, you then have to take that image to then reignite that process, so further ones on that theme would, so version 4, you'd hit version 4 and it would come up with other versions of version 4. Okay.
So if we hit variation 4, and then what you can do as well is upscale 4 and then drop that back in with other prompts. So you can say, like this background, but let's see, render it in a field, and that's what I was doing with the Finisterre stuff. Was I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to look like. I wanted a sofa on a beach made of down jacket fabric. So in my head, I might as well have sketched that. I've kind of done the kind of the creative part at that point, and then I'm guiding it to get to my outcome. So in that sense, I'm using it as a rendering software, because that would be not a quick thing to sketch up in SolidWorks, Blender, and then get that into a rendering program, and then get the right shadows. And I think that's where I see the benefits at the moment, is visualizing something that's naturally quite hard to CAD.
Yeah, and how much quicker would that be? How much time would you save doing that?
Oh, insane.
Yeah.
I mean, to CAD a realistic sofa. Let's just wind
I
it.
think just back on that time aspect is, you got to think about this. You've almost got, I don't know, a team of designers who are working at 1,000 times quicker than any designers at your disposal.
Yeah.
And if you imagine you were essentially instructing those same people as they were humans, is how would you explain what you want if you are kind of dictating a design to them? So I think being very clear with the language. I mean, I actually found myself using kind of please and in
was you being quite polite to it?
would you mind if you've got anything else that you're doing at the moment, would you mind explaining?
Do you remember going back old internet days? Remember Ask Jeeves? What do you want to ask Jeeves? So people are like, please could you find me a pair of shoes on the internet? And then you realize it's just like Nike trainers, and it will get you exactly the same results. It kind of disregarded. But then I feel like now we've gone back to Ask Jeeves. Now we are actually typing in, actually, please could you write me a song?
I think that's something that people are doing, or maybe not doing currently, where they're actually,
I think
rather than just putting the prompts in, you still need to have some kind of collateral in terms of imagery and things to get the most out of it, rather than just put a few words in and it's gonna.
Yeah, I think you have to a certain degree if you want to get something usable. You have to guide this
iterate.
AI. Exactly. So like this, but matte silver, minimal. See if we can try and get something. Apple MacBook / rucksack. It is a case of iterating and keeping it going, starting on something and then finding something, kind of leaning on it. I found it likes to put faces on things if you don't give it too many prompts. Early on, I was trying to do the clock, and that was probably the hardest one to get, because it was just putting weird faces on things. Okay, it's really not understood this.
So then I suppose then you, as the person with the technical knowledge or whatever, has to understand why this piece of AI hasn't understood the previous prompt, I guess, because then you can easily get yourself in a rabbit hole where you're going, well, I don't understand, and if the AI doesn't understand, you're kind of at this kind of point where you're just kind of putting something in and hoping something kind of sticks, and that's where the time vacuum kind of gets sucked up, I guess.
So I'm trying now. So it hasn't understood that it's a backpack.
So therefore, if you supply the picture of the backpack, it will then understand that.
Yeah. So we've got the picture of the backpack, and then said a backpack like this. Minimal silver, render on a beach, photorealistic. So this is also the cool thing is that you can tell it how to render it. So whether you want it photorealistic, or if you want a sketch, or if you want it in the style of Van Gogh, it seems to be everyone else is doing. Okay, so then now I would definitely say the text prompts seem to have more weight than images at the moment. So that's really stuck on the fact that it's a backpack, and then it's almost the text is an addition, so the image. But it's got the color, that bottom left, I would say, is a silver backpack on a beach. So then also there's a hierarchy in your prompts. So generally, whatever you put first is kind of the highest weighted, and then as it goes down.
Okay.
So it's quite interesting playing around with the order.
Yeah. So and as I suppose as someone that runs a design studio, and when obviously people report into you, all that kind of stuff, as someone that's in a bit more of a senior position, when you're looking at things like this, how much are you kind of going, I don't really want my members of staff to be prattling about this all day? You know, at what point is there like a, you know, to get the most out of this, is it something you should be kind of diarising? Say, right, I'm only going to spend half an hour on this, or 20 minutes, or 10 minutes, or rather than all of a sudden your day could just be gone very quickly. Just, you know, if you need to, how kind of rigid do you need to be in terms of, right, this is your time where you use this software, and then, you know, you have to go and do something else, otherwise, you know, the working day and billable hours are going to get sucked up doing, you know, doing stuff like this.
Yeah, it's definitely.
3 minutes. Sorry, you do something.
Sorry, it's not a problem that's come up yet. But
do you
yeah,
think it could?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those things where you have to self-manage whether you're being productive at anything. It's the same with CAD. You know, if you get stuck in a wormhole in SolidWorks, you need to have a break and move on sometimes. If you're trying to create something and you do end up in an infinite loop, and it's that self-knowing, I guess.
It'd be the equivalent of kind of giving, I don't know, no one used SolidWorks ever. You bring SolidWorks in, and then you go, right, I want to play with this and experiment with it. But okay, and then people would ask, okay, is there a training course? Nope. Is there a manual? Nope. How do we learn? There's a few people chatting about it on the internet. You're gonna have to go, and that's the stage that it's at, right? And I think it's only going to get quicker. There will definitely be people doing training courses on how to utilize this in the best way. There'll be probably certified Mid-Journey experts and various things. Yeah, I think it's that stage, isn't it?
Yeah, and do you mind, Tom, if we, in terms of the Apple backpack, if we just quickly go on DALL-E and just see what the difference
I was just thinking what we should probably do. Let's go right back to that Apple branded. Let's just chuck in the exact same prompts and see what comes up.
This is DALL-E. We're on there. I'm just saying, people that are listening to this thinking, what on earth are these three people talking about?
This is the most boring episode ever.
So we're on DALL-E. We've just typed in Apple branded backpack. Is this the real baseline prompt, just to see what kind of...
Yeah. So as far as I know, DALL-E was one of the first, but they didn't release it to the public. So then there was a bit of a race for other companies to try and do the same thing, which is where MindJourney came from, apparently, is kind of what I understand. This is quite interesting. So there's another thing I found with DALL-E, where Midjourney will give you complete products. DALL-E, I found, gives you kind of little snapshots, and kind of really kind of macro pictures. And actually this one, it's quite a nice texture on that. Kind of a part of a leather backpack. It's attached itself to the Apple logo more.
Yeah,
I'm getting Monsters Inc. vibe from the second one, to be honest with
you. But yeah, I've been playing around with also dropping in pictures from Midjourney into DALL-E, seeing how it would do work with variations. Okay, so here's a good example. So where we did those backpacks, so this is 3D render a design of a hydration pack for climbing, whereas Midjourney, I'd say we're getting those kind of more photorealistic renders. This is what I mean by kind of sketch up is probably the best way I'd describe that. Is that kind of not quite as resolved. A lot of them don't really make sense. You know, what's going on with a strap? You can physically wear that. Whereas the mid journey, I'd say you're getting a full concept, whether it's absolutely mad or not. You can kind of imagine what it was thinking. Whereas Dali,
I suppose the more detailed that prompt, the more likely that gets solved.
Yeah, potentially. If we did spend some more time on this, we might be able to get a bit further. But yeah, going back to asking it exactly how you want it to render is probably a good point. So yeah, if we did, let's try just adding photorealistic and see what it comes up with.
I quite like the fact that it makes you wait. Back to the mid 90s, it's like on a 56k modem waiting for an image to load up.
Do you think it is actually waiting? Do you think it's instant and it's adding to the?
I mean, the computing power, not particularly with this one, but with the Mid Journey, you kind of go, what is it doing? You know, it's kind of like, how many Photoshop steps is that?
Someone told me recently the Sky, you know, when you go on Skyscanner or Kayak or one of those, and it takes 10-15 seconds and it's flicking away and it's saying loading. That's all just a fuss.
I
don't know how much
adds to the anticipation experience.
Exactly, it makes it think that it's more intelligent because you're having to wait for it rather than an instant.
That's what a UX designer does. That's what UX designers get paid for.
It's like OpenAI when it's typing. You know, it's like it is like something's typing. You know, I'm sure it's instant, but it's kind of spelling it out for you. So these are getting better. I'd say it's still mental though, isn't it?
but isn't that probably a little bit more interesting in a way? Because with the renders, it's like feeding a CAD model into Keyshot. You know what you're getting. You're trying to make it feel as lifelike as possible. But from a more abstract perspective, this could potentially throw something that you just didn't think. And you could be designing. You could be an expert of designing backpacks all your life, and then suddenly you put something in. It's like, oh my god, this is that interpretation of some pixels that it's brought in. I think that's I kind of find that a little bit more exciting personally.
And is that
these
where
are interesting? These kind of rigid handles on the side. I think that's the point as well, is that these programs are trained on attributes. So it's a collection of attributes is what it's giving us really. And it's how they've kind of been mashed together. This profile here, this almost looks kind of clear and hollow and
like a fish tank.
Fish tank on the back. But to give you an idea of the sofas, so this is going back to the Finisterre sofa. The photorealism from a render point of view on some of these are incredible. Just how it plays with shadows on materials and natural falling fabrics, and if you ever tried to do that in any kind of CAD and rendering program, it's not easy to achieve.
Quenched in this kind of cross-platform aspect you're doing. I think I saw something that a guy the other day within a matter of hours had written a whole kid's novel with illustrations in a matter of, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours or something. But I think the way that you kind of play with those things and moving from one to the other and saying what the benefits of those are. I mean, we haven't even talked about video yet, but I mean, I think once, video or motion rather, and what animation and things you could do, it's, obviously that takes a lot more computing power, but that will happen very, very quickly. It's massively interesting how you can play with them all.
Animation is a great point. I think if we could drop in a Keyshot render and get it to do animations in real life settings and things like that, that could be of real value as a tool, not as a creativity producing tool, as a tool to use. I'm just going to show you the wetsuits because these made me laugh. What are these?
Wow.
I think what's worse about this for people that are listening to this is I've seen worse than that on portfolios in terms of what that's in terms of, and when I'm sure you've gone through some recent applications, I've definitely seen worse than that.
Dear.
Which is another point then that it's important for those people to be critiquing in a design perspective and not just a purely visual, whether it's whether it's students in a university or whether it's a portfolio, is kind of going, no matter how flashy your render is, I want to see more.
Absolutely.
than
Completely.
That, right? And,
it puts even more work onto the process.
Totally right actually.
This is a good one. So I asked it to design a water bottle with a sports cap.
that is absolutely brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. You need to post that on.
Yeah.
Because that is, but that's the crux of it, right? Where it unless it understands that language, and doesn't understand that meaning, right? And like, that is fantastic.
I think that's where the limitations are of taking words in isolation, and it's obviously gone, bottle, sports, cap, and it's associated with sports, so the cap on the bottle, and it's kind of tripped itself up.
The lack of humor is certainly noticeable even on the written, even when you write things. It's almost like you're kind of at a party or something and you're with someone, you're going, this is the most dry person I've ever met. I want to get as far away from them as possible. Any kind of final words from you in to wrap this one up? Or
I don't know. I mean, like,
I'll let you close the show.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about it earlier. It's like, I think for a long time designers, I don't know, maybe felt like they trying to find a place in society, or where do we fit? What's our purpose? But I think the more I've realized, in particular today, that all these things that we do from a human perspective as a designer, whether it's researching, trying it out with people, seeing if people are going to buy it in the end, and all these things, they're all those human curiosities. That's what I love about being a designer. And I think when you realize that all these other things are just tools, whether it's a 3D printer, AI, SolidWorks, whatever it is, it's all, even a pen, it's just a tool, right? And it's all those things you like being around people is what you love most about being a designer. So it's it's sometimes you got to get deep into these things to kind of get philosophical and feel that you've still got a future.